I am very honored to have Benjamin York, owner and CEO of Theory 168. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Hello,
Um,
Noah. It's great to be back.
it's great. It's great. I mean, the first time was, really cool because we were in person, but this is still great via Zoom. Um, Benjamin, the last time told me about a camera you developed um, for adjusting um, machines, Swiss machines in particular, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the alignment of them, more importantly.
right.
Yep.
The alignment. Yeah, and um, he's just he's just an innovative, uh, you know, passionate, inventive person, and I really wanted to have him back on the show. So the other day when he contacted me about some other stuff that his company was up to, um, seemed like a perfect time. Um, so today we're going to talk about a new thing that your company is doing, statistical process control. Um, Before we get to that, I want you to just summarize Theory 168, the products you guys do, what you're all about, and then I'll get a little bit scoop on your story, and then we'll break into some of the new interesting things you're working on. So, just in a nutshell, what does Theory 168 do?
Thanks, Noah. So I think our greatest attribute is developing and bringing together experience and technology in the machining world. Our main focus of the products that we build in Theory 168 all revolve around how we can optimize the machining process. And like we talked about before, take the art out of machining. To me as an experienced machinist, I really like the ability to scientifically attack its problems and not fight with what I was originally taught when I learned machining about ghosts in the machine. There's no ghosts in the machine. There's some mysteries at times, but for the most part, like I I want to build some math and science into it so I can figure it out because I can't just tell my boss that
Well,
you
if there
know
was a ghost in the machine, would it be more likely for the ghost to be in the computer part of the machine or the mechanical part of the machine?
I
Or are
think
there just no ghosts, period?
it's really the mystery of what we can't solve. There are so many variables, and quite frankly, a lot of the stuff that we work on in this world right now really tests our abilities. They can be We can really struggle with certain types of problems, and specifically in Swiss machines we run into issues that are
Hmm.
hard to identify the root cause.
I mean, I
And
know from
even
our
more important,
business, our machinery business, like particularly you'd think a mechanical machine, you wouldn't have this problem, but we get these machines and I mean, yeah, granted, they might be 40 years old or something, but it's like sometimes there's a reason that somebody got rid of a machine. It's like a lemon, like a
right?
car or
They
whatever.
couldn't figure it out. I kind
So,
of think of it as the crappy go-kart. You go to the go-kart track and
yeah.
there's always one go-kart that's not as fast as the rest. Nobody wants to ride that one.
And your attitude is that's BS. Like, if you just go at this from a rational point of view, you're going to make it work as it should.
Correct. Although there are issues at times that we just can't figure out why. So we got to dig deeper and we got to challenge ourselves. I consider it a challenge when I find that.
Right. You're not into coming up with like hacky solutions, a band-aid here or there to make it
It
function.
depends how tall the fire is, right? So, like if we've got a major situation and the main goal is just to get the parts to the customer,
Yeah.
boy, sometimes we got to do what we need to do to make that happen. But ultimately, I'm all about trying to identify the root cause and fix it for the long term.
Mm-hmm. And so you have a background um in being a consultant, correct?
Correct. Yep. Since 2009.
Since 2009. And before that, you worked in a shop?
Yep. Multiple different shops. I started working with my dad when I was a little kid. My
How
dad
little?
had his own shop when uh 4, right around 4 or 5. I kind of went out to the shop and I would sweep and pretty much get in his way. And then after that, like it just kind of stuck. I was out in the shop a lot and helping my dad with stuff and learning ultimately.
What was one of the most important things you learned from your dad?
What we do during the day, how it affects the kitchen table.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah. I got a good relationship between how things are going through the day and like what does that kitchen table look like? Is dad there at the kitchen table or is he still working because we didn't get the work done?
Oh,
And
okay. So you weren't talking about earning the bread. You're talking about if he was at the kitchen table.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And the decisions being made moving forward, like how does that enable time? That's a big thing to me. It's and it really correlates where I think industry is today, where we look at how can we utilize this equipment. Most shops are fairly underutilized, and they'll be probably
Mm-hmm.
the first to admit it. Yet they're still looking at trying to gain, more equipment and more people. Yet we still got room within the current base of equipment that they may have to do more.
Do you
And
have metrics on how underutilized a shop is? Like what their potential they are?
we so no, we built a tool to actually do that.
Right. And that was
To
one of the things we were going to talk about today.
right, right.
Okay.
Yep. Because there's so many factors. One thing I definitely
It's
understood.
called Tool Life.
Yeah, it's called Tool Life. Yep. It's a web-based software.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. And I've always wanted the idea of having some sort of tool that I could collect as much information in one place. So I could really have the best decision, or I could make the best decision on how to move forward to utilize the 168 hours that we're given a week because we don't get any more than that.
So that's why you have the Theory 168.
Correct, correct. I love that idea of we have a certain block amount of time and we got to make every moment count.
How many hours a week? How many hours a day do you generally work? Do you?
Do I work?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like my brain doesn't shut off. So my body will, and then I'll fall asleep at some point during the evening. And but generally, I wake up pretty often thinking about new ideas, new projects, past, current, future states of things. For the most part, I usually put in 10 to 12 hour days. But there's many times I'm thinking of a bunch of times with my software architect that we were up at 2 o'clock in the morning, uh, joking around and working on stuff via Zoom calls or whatever it might be. There's definitely a time period where I was in hotels a lot on the road working, and
Mm-hmm.
him and I would have some pretty late night calls working on different parts of the products that we're working through. And so I definitely put in some hours, but I love it. It doesn't feel like work, so it's pretty hard to quantify how many hours a week I might put in. But I'm
Awesome.
generally available at all times. So
Okay. So this is about utilizing people's time in the shop um, as much as possible.
yeah, and there's a greater aspect to that that's most important to me is how to make the job easier. So
Hmm.
it's not about how do we get more hours out of our people? How do we make their job easier so we make the technology work for us?
Okay.
Mhm.
And does this enable um I feel like we talked about this in the past where you said you could hire people that maybe didn't have the same skills like that they had acquired over time as um the 30-year veteran machinist.
Certainly. So it definitely seems like in the US and probably across the world, but certainly in the US, we have a situation where it's hard to find highly skilled employees and highly experienced employees. So we need to bring people into our companies that don't have the full skill set as our lead people or setup people or prototype people. And so instead of trying to fight with that and trying to bring people up to speed as quick as possible, I think that it's more important to try to go with it, kind of surf the wave, and try to give them lesser experienced people tools that makes their job easier, and they'll naturally gain the skill sets as they're in industry. I'm all for more training. I think that is awesome. I do a lot of training in my consulting business, but it takes time and it takes experiences to learn how to
Yeah.
do this tough work that we're doing in the industry today.
Yeah, and to me it seems like you talk to people from some of the most successful companies and they say I don't hire people necessarily for their experience. I just hire people because they seem like great, brilliant people. And then the rest will take care of itself. So to me, that's what it seems like because I meet people and they go, "Yeah, I just want to train my own people because I don't like the way they've done it over there," or you wonder why this person's available.
Right? And you can fix issues before they even start. You know, if you teach your own group with great attitudes, hire on attitude first.
Yeah,
If you train them internally within, they're going to adopt your culture. They're going to see the way that that company does things. And I think that is way more valuable than trying to find experienced people. Now, granted, there's always room for experienced people in
yeah,
machining, but they're hard to find.
sure. Um, okay, so yeah, as I asked before, what can you tell me? What percent um, productivity people are actually getting their potential productivity.
Yeah, so from a consulting standpoint, I have a gut feel, but it's a lot more of just grazing the surface of watching employees work, watching processes happen, watching the machine run, looking at some numbers. But what I've identified for some time now is it's completely impossible for my non-photographic brain to collect all that information and come up with really solid mathematical science.
Okay.
And so at that point, I realized no, the only real way I could do that is if I put everything on an on a computer and electronically gathered it.
Yeah.
And when I started doing that, I started realizing, wow, there is so much more we could do with this once we start collecting that much data in one place. It always bugged the heck out of me that at the end of my shift, when I was full-time machinist on the floor, that I would put notes into a notebook,
Mm-hmm.
or I might fill out documentation, handwritten, into a tool life log. And I would always question to myself, what do we do with this after the first or second shift? It gets lost. And unfortunately, that's some of the most valuable information.
Yeah. I mean, on the flip side, at least you reflected on it. That's what I find. Even I try to write about every single day. Um, and I mean, do I go back and read it all? No, but at least like you have it in your mind. But yeah, it's true. It's such a pity. You come up with this stuff and somebody else could use it, or even you yourself could use it the next day.
Mhm.
Um, so now tell me what Tool Life does.
Yeah, so the big picture outlook of Tool Life is we did exactly that. We built a platform to collect all the different types of data that we are normally writing down through the day or somehow collecting through our normal machining processes. For example, quality, tool changes, notes on the machine, offsets, just to name a few. And what we did is we built a platform to collect all that and allow the computer, allow the technology of software and cloud databases to analyze all that for us and
Mm-hmm.
feed back really solid root cause and suggestions on how we can improve what we're doing, which is something we've never been able to do before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's a lot of different types of tools out there that feedback analytics,
Right. I
but
know
you got to
there's machine
be.
metrics, there's various ERP systems. Um,
Mhm.
and this has some similarities, but it's got its own distinct properties, I'm assuming. How is it
Right.
what's the hardware like? Just so people can picture this. Is it something that like connects to the control? Is it something
Yep. So it's a
Wi-Fi?
4x4 box, Noah, and we call it our weather station. It's a machine weather station. And we connect this box via magnets to the machine. It just kind of snaps onto the machine. It's Wi-Fi, so the only other thing it needs is an outlet to plug into.
Hmm.
From there, it's collecting all kinds of information about the machine and the environment of the machine, and it's feeding it back into our web-based cloud.
Okay. Okay. And if you were to purchase one of these, you'd buy one, you sell them like one for each machine.
Correct. Yep. And it comes
Couldn't
kind of
couldn't you
as a
just
kit.
connect couldn't you connect a whole bunch of machines to one since it's all Wi-Fi anyways?
It it needs the localized box for each machine because there's specific data it's grabbing about that machine. So we may be grabbing some vibration data about the bar feed. We might be grabbing four different inputs of temperature. We might be grabbing the cycles. They're all unique to that machine. So the machine is the first separation point on where we're gathering data.
So, yeah, how does it gather data about the temperature or the vibration? You're saying because it's on the machine, it's doing that?
Yep, and we're using a pretty large variety of sensors.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So we're utilizing that sensor capability and layering that in with all the other data that we're grabbing.
Okay. And it's called Tool Life because this was one of the first puzzles you guys were trying to solve, how to get better tool life.
Right. I wanted a tool I
Why
wanted to
is
build.
tool life that so important that you would call it that?
It's the most unique feature that separates us out from other machining monitoring systems.
Okay.
So a lot of monitoring systems, they capture um, cycle time, they capture uptime, downtime, some operator input, and a few other things. All important, but there's some key things when I'm standing in front of a machine. I ask myself, how do I take the art out of this? And one of the arts to me is figuring out the frequency of tool life. When should I change the tool? Is it based off the quality of the part? Is it based off the way the machine feels? Is it based off of maybe a temperature thing I'm dealing with? Maybe chip wrap? Lots of different influences on the frequency of the tool life. From there, we need to try to figure out, when do we want to have a set rate to change that tool?
Okay. So it's on the machine and it says, I mean, I don't know, what is it, I should probably know this, but what's the range of tool life on a specific cutting tool? Are we talking like a week or a month, or it ranges from a week to a month depending on how expensive and
No,
quality
that's
it
a
is?
great question, Noah, and that's the ultimate question. When we design a job, or as engineers, we're processing the job and getting the programming ready and selecting the tools and figuring out how we're going to make the part. We're most likely going to have to try to identify to the operator when they should be really watching the tool life and determining when they should pull the tool out of the machine. So we got to come up with a frequency. I've worked on jobs that it was one insert edge per part, and I've worked on jobs that the insert lasted longer than 4 weeks. So and it could be end mills, it could be inserts, it could be all kinds of different types of tools. But we give a best guess off our experience, and then we have to monitor it for several weeks to make sure that the process is capable at that rate. From there, we might try to decide, do we optimize it or not? And that's where our system really comes in, because it helps that the machinist or the engineer identify the best point on where to change the tool at. One thing that's really hard to capture out at the machine is cost. If I change the tool at 100 parts versus 150, excuse me, that last 50 parts may have a lot of risk and quality. It may require a lot of the operator's time, and ultimately is going to really influence the cost and the predictability of that process.
Mm-hmm.
So it might make more sense to change it early. We clearly in our system identify the best point to change the tool based off lots of different layered aspects that we're looking
Okay.
at, cost being one of them.
But it all also comes down to which one you start with. Do you start with, the expensive one or the inexpensive one, and then test that? So
Right.
I guess you have an extra variable. Like, do you have to say you're trying to get the best tool life? Do you put in the cheap one first and see how that works, and then
So
put in
we
the
thought
expensive
about
one?
that too, Noah, and we built the ability to, and have the ability with the cloud style process that we use, to be able to look at the past history of all the tools that ran in our shop, and we can look at multiple different parts that they may have ran on. And now we have a pretty good idea of how that tool is going to run and how many minutes it's going to be able to work in this particular type of material. So now all of a sudden, now they got a database that they can go through a history of how did that tool work in other areas of the shop and get at least a starting point.
Right, but first you have to gather that data of stuff in
Right.
the shop, and that shop may not have gathered that data in the first place.
They didn't. There's definitely a couple weeks of startup that our system has to get smart. So, and as it's used, the more it's used, the smarter it gets. That's the way basically AI works. Is it's taking in more and more information and coming up with conclusions from that information.
All right, so give me the scenario. I have a machining company. I'm running some citizens and some mills, and you know, maybe 20 machines. Uh, I say, all right, I'll try your tool life thing. So how does the whole thing start? What give me the whole like process of implementing it.
You bet. So the box just basically snaps onto the machine, or it could be screwed onto the machine. And then from there, the sensors get put in a couple particular places. One
But I
thing that
thought you
we're
said you
finding,
have to get measure metrics for the whole shop.
we do, but if we're just talking about the first step of the implementation,
Okay.
each machine, we first mount the box, and that is then capable of collecting quite a bit of different temperature information and vibration information. The next step is we go to the software and we load up our job. So what I mean by that is we give it a little bit of costing information. We lay out the process, and then from there it's got the process has basically been defined, what tools we might use, and we develop some baseline frequencies on when things should happen. And now at that point, the job can be set up and start to be ran. And all this data is being collected, and there's a operator page that is reflecting what's going on as they run the job. They will also interface with the software. They may tell the software when they did an inspection, or they may have checked the filters in the coolant, or when they've done a tool change. And over the course of the first week, it's collecting all that information and it's getting smart. From there, it's starting to feed back where it thinks analytically things could work better and we could get more throughput a week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that just keeps on snowballing more and more. And as we place this on more machines, we might be using a particular insert on different jobs. And now we are collecting information not only on one job, but multiple jobs. And we can place them all against each other to see how they're
Mm.
working.
So it sounds like you really aren't going to get that much out of this if you only put it on one machine.
Right. The
'Cause
more you use it,
you have to have some other point of comparison, you're saying.
that definitely helps. The more it's used, the smarter it gets.
Mm-hmm. Are you also getting data from other things that the shop may give you? Um,
Yep. We're tracking live attendance on the operators. So we've come up with this really cool ability, Noah, that we can watch if
right.
the customer chooses the operator, they can watch where the operators are in the shop.
Because that's the
And
big, that, I mean, I interviewed Machine Metrics, and what they said was one of the most important things is where the hell is the operator? Like most of the,
Mhm.
half the productivity just comes from the operator not even being at the machine.
Right, we want to understand attendance, and not only attendance on that particular machine, but maybe on the support equipment too. So then we can understand where our bottlenecks are in our company, and maybe where we need to have, we could instantly see ROI in maybe we need another CMM. Maybe we need to move these machines all closer because we're losing a lot of time walking from one end of the shop to the other.
Interesting.
So we call it Shop Map 168, and it's an add-on to our product, and it's really awesome. You can see where everybody is in the shop, and it tracks, and it also analytically feeds back how could we make this more efficient.
And is that in your studies the number one, not just the very first thing out
To
of
me,
anything?
the most important thing is organization. So, and that's all of it. So organizing the metrics on how we're measuring, organizing the process, organizing our workspace, organizing just organizing it all. From there, the next part of it is capability. How are we measuring the capability of the process? And statistically, we can do that, and we have been doing that for a long time. But generally, we only look at the quality of the part. We
Yeah.
look at the reaction, and we may not be able to quickly identify where our problems are at. Um, and that's why I wanted to build something that was a lot more live. I could identify quickly, as soon as problems start to develop, where they're at and what I need to do to fix them.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So once you figure out what to do to fix it, um, I'm assuming, the significant folk at the company, maybe the machinists as well, they all have a huddle and try to figure out where to go from there. Do they usually know what to do, or do you guys come in and help them figure out the right process to fix it?
Well, so that was part of this, Noah, is I wanted to build basically a consultant in a box, me in a software. So we feed back suggestions. But one thing I've definitely identified is if we can realize the root cause to an issue, most machinists understand a solution to that. The solution isn't the tough part, it's understanding the root cause. And once we understand the root cause, the solutions I feel are a lot easier to come by.
Okay, so the solutions are relatively easy to come by. Then how difficult is it to change somebody's behavior in what you've seen so far?
So one big part
I
of
find
this,
out things about myself all the time, weaknesses. I even find out the origin. And then there's so many damn things I'm trying to fix, and you know, everything. It's hard to get me to do it. So are you guys helping management, or are you guys, I don't know. So you give these people the tools and they figure it out. Do you have any data at this point? I mean, it's a pretty new product, but what's your hypothesis about how likely are people actually going to change behavior? That's like the hardest thing to make anybody do, change behavior.
well, money does that, right? The bottom line,
Getting fired.
so
Yeah.
if we're looking at a process and we realize that there is opportunity in the process, it becomes pretty, I think it becomes pretty clear to everyone what we need to do to fix it. Then from there, I've always thought of us as machinists, Noah, as race car drivers. The majority of us, we try to push the process as hard as we can and make it as fast as possible. It's in our nature. Like
Okay.
we want to make that machine. They're Lamborghinis. I think of them as high-end cars.
So people
They're
are
anywhere
motivated.
from,
They're willing to they're willing to do relatively painful things to get them better. These aren't sort of apathetic folk. They want to They want to go as fast as possible, and they're willing to make sacrifice.
More than any other industry I've ever been in. I'm constantly watching it. It seems like the manufacturing industry, I've never been around such a group of people that strive so hard to make things as optimal as possible. It's
That's
just like
interesting.
it's required in our blood to be in this industry, I
And
believe.
that starts at the bottom. You don't have to go to the person at the top with a whip saying that's, you know, that's not good enough. Like, you think if you give the person on the machine that knowledge, they're often going to take care of it themselves.
I agree. They're going to definitely try. They're going to try everything in their power to do that. Yep.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
that makes it a lot more satisfying for you, thinking that you're going to give people this information and they're actually going to use it. Yeah.
right. And greater tools to gain more information. It's the information age. The more we can have, the stronger we are, I feel.
What do you see as the future for you? This is so you Tool Life was that was the catalyst to get this started. Do you see this doing metrics for lots of other things?
I do. I think the future in general of manufacturing is that we identify every variable and bottleneck in our business and we come up with technological solutions to solve those and come up with root cause reason to why they're happening and then how can we eliminate it or at least come up with how can we get through it as quick as possible when they do come up.
Hmm.
Mhm. Everything what we're working on is geared towards how can we get to that point as fast as possible? How can we help our customers get to realizing that point as fast as possible?
Um, all right. So you told me earlier you work yourself 12-hour days. Um, but you like it. I mean, you don't consider it really work, but do you find do you think that you could are you often trying to figure out like systematically how you could alter your own workflow like this, or is it different when it's coming up with ideas versus um being on a machine?
I think there definitely is times where when when we're trying to innovate or create within the company based off a dream or an idea, there are times that I think structure inhibits that from growing,
Hmm.
that idea from growing. If there's too much structure, we build too many parameters and it doesn't allow us to really reach and challenge as far as we could possibly go. But also internally, we've brought in um, different types of project management softwares to gain structure. So one of the things that seems like it's important to me is trying to figure out when we don't have parameters and we just allow the ideas to flow, and then when we need to reel it back in to have some sort of concentrated direction.
Yeah. I mean, what everybody says, not what everybody says, but what I've read and what I try to make myself do is, if you give yourself a limited amount of time, you'll get it done in that limited amount of time. Like, the limitations help you. If you give yourself too much leeway, um and that's what I make this judgment when I hear about people that work 12-hour days. You go to other countries, yeah, I work 12-hour days. I'm not going to lie, there are things that maybe I could stay after and finish, that I just leave for the next day. But I look at it and I just think, you really think you could have, maybe you could have put that 12 hours into 9 hours. I don't know. What do you think? I guess we're getting off the subject in a way, but
Well,
it's
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 all
it's
about
it's time
efficiency, right?
management. So it's time management, and so I'm just curious about that with you.
Don't get me wrong here, Noah. There are certainly days where after 5 hours, I'm like, oh my God, my brain is like totally squash and I'm not going to accomplish anything more today. And I need to give it a break and come back to it. I know we've ran into points in our company. We're a heavy innovation company that we've gotten to points where I've got to fully walk away from whatever we're working on for a good solid week and come back to it. There's also points where if I keep on trying to force the answer, that I get to a situation where I come up with so much better answers if I allow them to come to me instead of trying to make it happen. But sometimes we don't have a choice, right? Like, and that ends up being that 10, 12-hour day is when we just got to keep on pounding away at it to try to figure it out. When I'm on the floor working on a part, we don't get the ability to walk away from it for a week and come back to it. And to me, I call
And it
that
gets you
somewhat
to
of
fit. It
being in
gets you to
manufacturing,
finish. Yeah.
right? You have to keep on working on it. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, look at the vaccine, right? How quick people came up with the vaccine in a fraction of the time that they can't come up with any vaccine with COVID-19. And if you have to, it's amazing what you could do.
Right. There's a lot of people out there that I believe are putting in a lot of serious hours, not giving them that time to be able to just kind of get away from it and come back to it.
And probably thinking of ways to automate it or
Sure.
get their processes better.
Yep.
Um, what is what's something interesting that you learned in the last week?
Oof. In the last week,
It doesn't have to be related to machining. It could be about
yeah,
anything.
I guess one thing for sure is just trust everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. It doesn't always seem like it in the middle, but it definitely seems like just trust that we all care. We all care about like
What taught you this though? Why did you what inspired this thing that you learned? Or is this more something you've observed?
I think it's what I've been observing, and it's really the last year. I mean, it's really just keeps on fulfilling itself that we all care about trying to do the best we can,
Yeah.
and we're all trying to be better humans, right? And
Well,
you
some
know it
some would argue, some on both sides would argue, that the other people aren't trying to be the best people, that they're trying to be the worst people on both sides.
and
But
it could be, but in the end, like it takes all of us to figure all that out. We don't not no singular person gets to figure all that out. We all got to do it.
well,
We're
I'm
all part of
glad. I feel the same. Um, I guess I don't know. Yes, it's true. Have I learned that people are resilient to crisis? Maybe that's something they've been learning all year. I don't know. I know we're going on a total tangent here, but hey, the thing I have learned this year is, and you know, I don't know. Maybe it's just something you always learn, but I feel like lately it's just when you think you've seen it all, just when you
it.
think, just when you think you've seen something that Holy crap. Nothing crazier than this is ever going to happen. It gets upstaged.
Yeah, I think, never letting ourselves be okay with the fact that, yeah, that's never going to change. You know, things are always the one thing, the couple things we can count on are death and change, right? Like, we know that there's going to be change, and we know at some point we're going to die. Like,
And you
it's,
know that
it's
there's going to be
inevitable,
something that's going to happen that we haven't seen before. I guess that
right?
keeps life exciting.
However, we want to look at it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, is there anything else you want to say to the people of the world?
Hey, I got tons, Noah. I guess the biggest thing is I think this is going to be a big year of gratitude, happy with what we got, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
and also looking forward. I think that's a big part of it. Looking forward and how can we make life a little bit more fun? You know, because dang, I mean, really, there's been some things over the last year that have really sucked bad. And
Yes.
but I think 2021 is the year of us having more fun and enjoying what we do. You know, whether it be at home or at work or anywhere in between. Like just enjoying it more.
I love that. I agree. Uh, I hope that other people that dawns on other people. That I mean, I think maybe analyze this. I must analyze this a lot more than other people. I'm just constantly thinking about like, man, I only have so many days left, and I only have so many times where I'm like a young, vibrant 40-some-year-old. Like before long, I'll be like retiring and be getting ARP, and like you better just savor every little moment of the day because you know that that's I don't know where the last 15 years went, you know?
Right. I got the same.
Yeah. Well, good. It
It
seems like
went by so damn quick.
yeah. Well, I mean, I see that with you. I think we have that in common that it's just trying to slow down. I mean, I think it's a little ironic that, well, maybe it's not, the name of your company, 168 hours in a week. So you're saying, how can we maximize these 168 hours?
Yeah, in all ways. And how can we make technology work for us? I mean, that's a big thing. That's a big thing. Me moving into 2021 is what is out there that I can use so I can have more time with my friends and family.
Yes, exactly. Um, I'm going to send you, a link to this guy named Ari Meisel. Um, he wrote a book called The Art of Less Doing,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got a website, lessdoing.com. I interviewed him. He, yeah, he's all about that. He's a bit, he takes it to the extreme, but you need something to try to inspire you. So, um, anyways, always learned a lot talking to you. It's always fun. So, thank you, and yeah, I wish you all the best of luck. Let's be in contact closely, I hope, in the future.
Yeah, definitely knowing I feel the same. I always like all of our conversations that we have. So anytime, like reach out.